All right, what's up, guys? I haven't been here in a while. Oh, great! Just so you know, Benny might be joining us for today's episode. He's on his way over. Um, but I've been inspired to come out of my like summer kind of hiatus because here we go. Benny is
My
here.
goodness.
Because in the past couple weeks, like a lot of shifts have been happening, right? And I connected with, we're gonna call her Jer, and I'm gonna let you introduce yourself as well. Online and just connected in so many different ways. Like I feel spiritually, universe wise. Gus kind of connected us. I feel like whether we don't really necessarily know for what yet, but it's apparent based on the how angels have been showing up and kind of
Yeah,
in that way. So came out of just a little summer break because I wanted to interview you. And so, do you want to just take a minute and tell them a little bit about yourself?
sure. My name is Jereanne Elizabeth. I am a energy healer. I am a recovering addict. I'll have 10 years clean on Tuesday. It's crazy. That's like a whole cycle, a decade. And I'm also a somatic therapist. So I do a little bit of everything. And I just continue to follow like what has helped me. And then I apply it to myself and then learn what I need to learn in order to bring it into my business.
Tell me, can you tell them a little bit what does that mean? The therapist. What was the word?
Somatic therapy.
What is that
So somatic work is the energy in the body. So if you look at trauma on a neurological level, you've got the mindset impact of it, but trauma is a highly intense experience that gets stuck in the body and it can manifest into, a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. And we might not even realize we're stuck in one of those responses. So part of the work I do is look at the energy that's stuck in the body and create a sacred space in order to finally like release that or to feel it. So for example, I work with a lot of people who have, suppressed anger and it's manifesting in their relationships or, outbursts in traffic and it's just showing up. So we will create a container where they choose to feel their anger, where I will put on some music, they will rage out, they'll break things, they will scream, and then you get to what's underneath of that, which is usually grief or like not feeling heard. And then you can like kind of work through that so that your body's not responding in a way that is harming your day-to-day life and alignment.
Ooh,
It's
uh,
fun.
yeah, I just had asked my friend, I'm like, can we go to this rage room? And she was like, nah, that's too much for me, but I'm gonna sign up. I want to go to the rage room.
Yeah.
So tell me, like, and I didn't know that I would ask more questions about this because we have a whole nother topic that we want to talk about. But when you say like trauma, embeds itself in our body and then it can show up in ways and it can come out in ways. And do people necessarily notice that that's what's causing that to happen?
So when I started doing this work, it was more so around sexual trauma for women who had a really hard time with, penetration or connection. And they realized, oh my gosh, like I can't drop back into my body during sex because my trauma keeps showing up in my head or I keep having these flashbacks. So sometimes it's a very conscious thing, and other times it's a very subconscious thing where you're impatient with your kids and you're yelling frequently at them. There's so many different layers and it's very individualized. So, yeah,
Interesting.
it is.
Yeah.
I always like to use the example that is kind of surface level. My primary partner, whenever I would like walk in front of our car, he would beep the horn and scare me, right? So I would jump. So now anytime I walk in front of my car, my body braces itself because I'm expecting that startled response. So that's like an example of how when you're a kid, you're getting yelled at. What do? You flinch, your body responds to it. So now when you're an adult and you're in a relationship and there's conflict and someone raises their voice, your body's going to flinch, is going to remember not just the situation you're in, but everything that you've been through and respond.
I'm laughing because I had an ex that used to do that to me too. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. So let's and maybe we'll come back to this as we talk, but you had just mentioned your primary partner. So we were talking before we got on here, and I was sharing with you how oftentimes when I open up a way for people to ask me anonymous questions, based on my following and different people, they often will share that they're in a relationship with a man, married or whatever, probably middle-aged, and but they feel that they might be gay, they feel like they might be, want to try with girls, and they don't know what direction to take. And when you and I talked, and I heard about, I guess your situation. Sorry if that's offensive. I don't know what.
No, it's okay. It's a unique dynamic.
Yes. I thought, well, let's talk about that maybe because this isn't necessarily my area of expertise, but this could be helpful for a lot of people that have those questions. So you want to share a little bit about what I mean by your situation?
Yeah, so I guess my entire life, I have always been attracted to women. I've dated women, I have dated men. Um, Probably more so, I've dated more women than I have men in my lifetime. And I had my heart broken by a female, so I was like, okay, I'm going to the other side. And I am married to a man. We've been married for since 2020, but we've been together for 6 years. We were both in recovery. We met in recovery. And I thought that once I was married and I had kids, like I started rejecting that part of me. I was all of a sudden straight. I started, judging myself that I had these desires because from the outside looking in, my life is amazing. Like people would want it, but I was rejecting this part of me, this part that craved that softness from a woman, that craved that deeper connection. And I'm not saying I don't have that with my husband because I do. It's just different. And I thought it was very selfish as well because, my husband is an amazing soul, an amazing person, but it wasn't enough for me. So I would notice that rejection self manifesting in, behaviors that were not okay because at that time we were in a more monogamous style relationship and I would be talking to him without him knowing. And that didn't feel right with like I was lying. It didn't feel right with my soul. Um, so I started looking into the way that society kind of shapes our brains into thinking what a relationship is and what love looks like. And I also started looking at all of the fear I had about being bisexual in my town, like being judged by other soccer moms and feeling like my kids were going to get made fun of. So I had a lot of fear, which, stemmed from shame. And I had a conversation with my husband, and he always would joke with me, being like, just get a girlfriend, just get a girlfriend. But I don't think he knew how serious I was or how deep the desire was. So one day I approached him and I just kind of started crying. I was like, I feel like I'm not myself anymore. I love you, but also I am deeply desiring this. So we started exploring together. We started, looking into the swinger route. We realized that was not the direction that we wanted to go. It was more of a physical connection than, an emotional and intimate connection. There was a lot of trial and error, and there was a lot of jealousy and things that came up that it was like a pendulum. It would be really good feelings and then really like, oh my gosh, I feel this, and communication. My first experience with a woman after not being with one for so long, as soon as I touched her, I just started crying because I felt like just that piece of me coming back. And then I started dating that woman. I dated her for about a year. Um, and yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me, and it's so hard when society tells us relationships should look one way, and realizing that my happiness matters more than what other people think. And my partner is obviously the right partner for me because he supported that. If he wouldn't have, we probably wouldn't be together today. If he would have been like, no, because I've had a lot of people message me like, how does your husband support this? My husband shuts this part. I work with a lot of women who are in the closet with these thoughts. And it's sad because I think that we're here to live our truest, you know, but there's so much stigma around it. I was just talking to someone from my town the other day and she's like, I heard you were a swinger. And I was like, that is not true. And I also realized through this whole experience that a lot of people do judge me I've lost a lot of people when I started talking about this, and not everybody has to talk about it. You know, you can live it without talking about it. I choose to talk about it because I don't ever want anybody to feel the way I felt.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
100%. And here's the thing: whether it's this or something else, people are always going to judge,
Hmm.
right? Doesn't matter. We're always going to judge. You're always going to be judged in some way, shape, or form. Um, so out of all that, I think that was also very helpful. But I got stuck on the first thing that you said, which was how a woman broke your heart and that kind of pushed you towards men. Can we lean into that for a minute?
Yeah, I feel like, at least with my experience, my relationships with women have always been more energetically charged, more emotional, and the connection has always been a lot stronger. So after I lost a partner of mine, and after that happened, I was like, we're going to like let myself love like that. I'm never going to open myself up like that again. And I knew I wouldn't have that connection with a man. So I kind of went that route thinking that it would be safer, but still, like, that was me running away from my feelings. I have since like processed and moved through those, but yeah, I just thought it would be softer and easier. But I mean, I think everything leads you where you're meant to go and through the lessons you're meant to learn. So yeah.
You lost a partner um, while you were together,
Yeah.
and so what I heard you saying was ultimately you felt like it would be easier to then be with a man.
Yeah.
Do you think, I don't know how long that was before losing your partner and then finding a man, but did you ever find yourself maybe like self-sabotaging, doing things to push people away?
Oh my gosh, girl. Yes. Like, I mean, I still do that now. It's an upper limit thing. I do that within my business. I do that in my relationships, but I also think it's because um part of me felt like I wasn't worthy of receiving that love or that connection. Or if I allowed myself to have it, I was going to get hurt. So if I had the power and I was the one that sabotaged it or ruined it, then I was hurting myself. And that was a choice, and somebody else wasn't hurting me. But it would manifest in so many different ways. And I think part of the subconscious thing with going towards men was, I don't feel like I deserve to be happy because I felt like I had played a part in that loss in some way.
Yeah, that's freaking loaded. It's so loaded. But so how have you kind of grown from that? Like, do you believe that you're worthy now? Yeah.
I do. I mean, we all have our days. Sometimes I'll confuse my level of worthiness based off of my productivity. Like, if I'm having a day where my vibration's lower and I want to rest and I want to take it slow, there's this like mode in me who's like, you're worthless. You're not doing anything. You need to work out. You need to call this person back. And I think that is also part of my like abusive upbringing, is like I'm motivated by that. I do know that I came into this world. We all came into this world born worthy. We don't have to earn love. We don't have to earn joy. Just life blocks that, and our brains block us from that to try and keep us safe. Um, but I'm constantly working on, ego, higher self. When that voice shows up, I know that that is my conditioning and my programming, and it's not reality.
Yeah, I feel that 100%. All of it all comes down to like when learning about, working with clients and stuff, and I'm sure you figured this out too, is we all have different programs that we're running that we were learned at one point when we were very young, right? And whether that be how you learned to receive love, like what you needed to do or what made you worthy of it, whatever that is, can show up consistently throughout your entire life until you become aware of it and begin to make those changes. And even when you become aware, it doesn't just say, "Oh, I'm aware it's changed." Like you have to do a lot of work around that. Um, I that's exactly what I try to do in what I teach or and practice as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
was there something that you learned along the way that was like one of the catalysts to really helping you to like reach that new level of like, hey, I'm worthy of this regardless of what happens, regardless of what I did or didn't do or what I learned. Like, what was that if there was something?
So I feel for me and my journey, after I lost my partner, I like dove deep into heroin and a crack addiction, to kind of run away from it, which the lifestyle caused more behaviors that once I got clean, I still felt very unworthy. So I kind of did a lot of going back and healing parts of my story, and also like zooming out and looking at all of the times that I had this story in my head that I was such a bad person because the way I lived my life in addiction. So karma's going to get me. I'm not worthy of happiness. I'm not going to be anybody. Once I realized that all of that was a symptom, and I don't know what everybody believes, but I believe addiction is a disease, and you don't have to believe that. And I'm not here to like tell anybody different. But once I realized that like my lifestyle was like a symptom of a disease that I had, I realized like, okay, if I start healing myself, I can like learn to forgive myself. Self-forgiveness was what made me realize that I was worthy, again, worthy of love, worthy of embracing exactly who I was. And I knew that if I didn't embrace my bisexuality and my desire to be with women, it would lead me into behaviors that were very similar to addiction. It would lead me to lying. It would lead me to being sneaky. It would lead me to, or shutting off that part of me and being miserable and unhappy. And I worked my ass off to become free from my addiction, that I wasn't going to allow myself to not live the fullest life possible clean.
Yeah, that's awesome. What I hear you saying is you practice a lot of forgiveness with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I've been having a lot of discussions this week with clients and just people on my social media about being really hard on ourselves and harder than we are on other people.
Oh, yeah.
I feel that 100%. I know that I am that way, and it causes more. Like, I think for me anyway, we learned along the way that being hard on yourself and pushing yourself is how you move forward, right? It's how you reach your goals. And also, on the other hand, in the kind of work that we do when we connect it to spirituality and stuff, you know that that actually can hold you back. And it's like this, like two things that are the same thing but fighting each other. Um, how did you kind of shift that from I'm going to be really hard on myself to like I'm going to show up with forgiveness and love for myself every single day?
Hmm. That's tough. Like, that's a tough one because I honestly, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I still battle with that. It will manifest in other ways. I think the most recent way it manifested was with my body, with my eating habits, with comparing myself to other people, or comparing myself to like my past body before I had kids. This is what I try to do. I try to talk to myself the way I wished my mother talked to me, or the way a loving parent should talk to you. And then, or I show up for my kids from that soft place of being gentler with them. But it's really fucking hard.
That just sparks something in me. It's like maybe why we're so hard on ourselves. It's not necessarily our adult self, but our inner child.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I talk to my inner child a lot, definitely. Because I remind myself. Oh, I feel like oftentimes when I don't show up as the person I know that I am today, I know that it's not my current self. That's my inner child, like kind of poking through, and yeah, get to talk to them. I get that for sure.
Yeah. I feel like so much of it stems from that because it's tough, but I love watching people show up for themselves and to kind of rewrite their story.
Do you have any suggestions if somebody's like, all right, this inner child shit, I don't know about that, but maybe I'll give it a try. Like, what should I do? Do you have any like short or like if you're new to some inner child work, like something that you could suggest for them?
Yeah, for me, I found it more beneficial in the beginning of doing this work to like not go back to the pain all the time, to kind go back. You can do this through meditation, you can do this through journaling. Go back, write a letter to your inner child, or like let your inner channel your own inner child. Write down everything that she wanted to say or how she wanted to be seen. Let her take up space. And then, give her what you needed at that point. I like doing it through meditation because, especially with people who are more visual, they can like see and they can imagine like embracing or just giving their inner child a hug. I use an anchor point for my inner child. So I know my inner child showing up when I'm in my head thinking or thinking I did something wrong or thinking I'm being judged because, that was a big part of my upbringing. Everything was my fault. Nobody liked me. I wasn't truly seen or heard. So whenever I have that story coming into play, I also do something that sounds probably like weird, but I tell myself like you're really not that fucking important. You like we think that we have this level of importance and you are important in other people's lives. And we do, but like they're not thinking about us all the time. We're the main character in our own lives. Like they're thinking about their own things, and everybody's a mirror. So whenever somebody's like mean to me or judging me, I know that I'm triggering some wounds within them or some pain within them. So I also have learned to not take things so personally that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. Um, I'll share with you. I had a weird, I don't know if weird's the right word. I need to find a better word. But I had an experience once with one of my mentors, Joseph McClendon, where we went through a whole day of like kind of doing the work. And then we ended the day, this is like a 15-hour day, where we close our eyes, like there's music playing, it's like freezing in the room. And he talks us through kind of walking towards something. And this person in the distance. And as we're walking towards this person, we're going through, and the closer they come, the smaller they get. And when you finally meet this person, you realize it's your childhood self. It's a little version of you. And we got to speak to that child, right? And so I said what I
Yeah.
needed to say. And later, when I was kind of debriefing with my team what we experienced, I had this like realization because when I was young, I don't know why, but I would always be like, you're gonna do good things. You're gonna be great. People, and whatever I thought then, I don't know where those thoughts came from. And then I was like, holy crap, did we just like jump timelines here or whatever? Did that experience, was that me? Is that how I knew that then? You know what I mean? Like, did I say that in this? And it was actually, I heard that.
Ooh, that's trippy. I know exactly, like I know that feeling you're talking about. That's really cool.
Yeah. So I was like, what is happening? Okay, I'm gonna keep doing this. Definitely
Yeah.
interesting. Um, okay, so what do you think that maybe somebody might want to know? Like, because a lot of people that listen to this or that follow me are figuring out their sexuality. They're older. And I don't like to say older, but probably like 30s, 40s, 50s. Maybe they're with a husband right now and they don't know what steps to take. Like, how did you even open that conversation with your husband?
My husband, so it's unique because my husband and I, since we've been together, have always been big into personal development. So we've had so many different versions of ourselves within our relationship. We've gotten to fall in love with different people throughout the years. So he was minded to like the conversation and supports my personal growth. Now I have a lot of friends whose husbands are not like I feel like when you're in a relationship and one person's growing and the other person's staying stuck, it can become pretty toxic. It can you can out and you can feel bad and you can reject the new version of yourself because of it. So there's a lot of layers to this. But if you're sitting there and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is a part of me and I like deserve to embrace this or at least even accept and acknowledge it, um, if you have like a hard time verbalizing and actually communicating with your throat chakra and your heart space, I always recommend writing a letter and giving it to them like when you're not around. That might sound cowardly, but then you're not like in an emotionally charged space. And like you can kind of get that out of you in a safer way. If you have a partner who is like open to like the expansion of yourself and going in that direction, then I would definitely recommend, having that conversation and then looking for like the next inspired action, the next step, whether that is, even just testing out the idea. Because, okay, so you have this desire, testing out the idea by like, the next time you master or get off, imagine yourself the woman that feels in your body. See if it's something you really truly desire. And then like start taking the next step to bring that energy into your life. There's so many different directions this could go. Not everybody's like me. I am an Aries sun, an Aries moon, an Aries Mercury. If I want something, I'm gonna go and I'm going to get it. Like the fan is like, it's not just gonna stop at a conversation with me. And I'm so glad I'm like that. But not everybody, I have to realize not everybody moves at my pace, and that's okay. Sometimes just accepting that part of yourself feels like freedom and expansion as well.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want you to help me figure out my Gemini things, sun, moon, whatever. But I'm a big fan of letters because I get very overwhelmed. My throat chakra closes, like it's, and I can't speak, and it gets very like stuck energy in my throat, in like well up in my eyes. And the best way that I can communicate for something that is so emotional for me is through writing. Um, and so for me, like that speaks volumes, but it just depends, I guess.
Yeah. It would be really good for your throat, some somatic work, going back to where you felt like what you had to say didn't matter, or where, you started to develop that blockage and like create a space where you just kind of express it. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, you maybe can give me some tips because like for the longest time, ever since I was little, that's what happened. Like my throat just closes and I can't even get out. So people are looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Just say it. And I'm like, I literally can't. Like it's closed, like it's so tight, you know?
Yeah, no, I understand that completely.
Well, you can always come visit and show me as well.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
But I guess what else should we touch upon? Is there anything that on your heart that you feel right now? Like what do you feel that people might need to hear from you at the moment?
I don't know. Honestly, like this is a big leap. I do talk about, my relationship style was like on a deeper level. So part of my inner child right now is like, oh my God, somebody from your tiny town is going to listen to this because a lot of those, and I think this is also an application of, if we're here inspiring other people and like letting them know their happiness matters, and this is just like their footwork thing, an application of it for myself. I think the biggest that I am passionate in this moment in my timeline, I think, is my recovery, just because my clean date's coming up. Um, and also another thing, if you choose to go the route where you're listening to this and you are in a relationship style similar to mine, another thing my husband and I just moved through was he was helping me heal from a heartbreak from another relationship. So that was an interesting thing. I caught myself sometimes minimizing the emotional connection I had from my last relationship because I didn't want to hurt him. Um, and then like the one day he just looked at me and, you're healing. How can I support you? So it's an expansion of love. Like I have this primary partner who, I mean, I also have daddy issues. So like he kind of, helps with that. Super supportive, an amazing father. And then I have like, I don't think one person, and this might change for me. I haven't found that like one person can like, this sounds selfish, whatever, like fulfill, or I don't want to put that responsibility on one person to fulfill all of the desires, wants, needs I have. And I know I'm responsible for filling those wants and needs myself. But I also like in the relationship, I don't put that pressure on one person. It's just like an expansion of, and I think we're all energy. So I think that's why I have like masculine energy, feminine energy too. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, and your husband sounds amazing.
He's an amazing soul. We are definitely trauma bonded. We have very similar trauma addiction. He lost his wife. So I think the universe kind of brought us together for me to help him heal some suppressed things that he had, and for me to realize, because as a kid, I had ADHD growing up. So my parents constantly tried to fit me into this mold. I had an IEP, I was in learning support. I didn't learn the way other people did. So my whole life I thought I was broken. I wasn't fixable. Nobody loved me for how I was. And then my partner shows me a form of unconditional love, and like loves the changes and the expansion. It's pretty neat. It's like the father I wish I always had in some weird, twisted, kinky, or erotic way.
All right. So one of the last things I like to ask people is like if you could well actually I have a different question for you first. So what? If somebody from your small town hears this, can speak to them right now. If they're over there and they
Hmm.
might not we're assuming they're forming opinions and judgments, but they might not be. They might be like, I wish I could be like that, but be scared. So like what would you say if a small town like person is listening to this right now and whatever? What could you
Yeah. So this is a loaded thing because I'm already the town like recovering addict slash witch is what I'm labeled. So now I'm like the bisexual recovering addict witch. But I guess I would say I am a very loving, generous, kind soul, and I'm a good mom regardless of what society says based on this. I think that's my biggest fear, Jamie, is like I don't want my kids to get made fun of. I don't want my kids to be judged. I don't want people to think that I'm any less than because of that. And I know I'm not. Um, oh, it gave me the feels like right in my heart space when I said that to myself. Like I know I'm a good person. And if anybody is moving through similar feelings, I'm always there for you.
And you know that we can never fully protect our kids from being made fun of or judged. Like, regardless of who you are and how you show up, it's probably going to happen to them. It happened to you, it happened to me. Like, this is life. But what can
Yeah, I
we do
know.
in that sense to make sure that I struggle with this often because people in my hometown are like, up in arms about being bullied about being gay and this, that, and the other thing, and wanting people to just be punished for that. Fine, yes, you should punish people for being bullies. And on the other hand, how about we start empowering the kids who are being bullied? Because it's not going to go
Mm,
away just because you're, this guy in middle school got punished doesn't mean that you're not going to be bullied again your entire life. You might would probably continue. I'm 4 years old. I'm still getting bullied at times, right? So like, how can we
yeah.
empower our kids and show up for them and give them the tools necessary so when they do get bullied, because they will, regardless of what their mom, dad, sister, brother, like you're going to get bullied by someone along the line, unless you are always the bully yourself. And then that's a whole nother story. But like, how can we
Yeah.
empower them? So the next question would be, what would you say to your childhood self? Think of whatever age comes up first. For me, it's always 9 years old. I don't know what happened, but that's the childhood me.
That's how old my son is. Um, I feel like for me, I go to 11. Um, because I think that's like when I first really realized I liked women. Um, and I would just say to her, like, every single part of your being is worthy of love. Because I've always felt like I could only show the parts that people accepted and the parts that people wanted to see. And I felt like a chameleon. I felt like I would just shapeshift into what anybody wanted to be. And I had no clue who I was.
Yeah, yeah. So we could end it on that. So that's what you'd say to your 11-year-old self.
Yeah, you're worthy of love, all parts of you. I would
Um,
also let her know that we like move out of the awkward stage.
if you're talking about physically, 100%, yes.
Physically, 100%. Like you're not going to be this awkward looking forever.
Same to my little childhood self. Yeah. So I want to just thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy. Thank you for sharing because I get it. There are some things that, are really, people will look at me and judge me for sharing and be like, you don't need to share everything online. And you're right, I don't, but I share the things that I think might help other people move through what they're going through because I've been there myself. I've been at a time where I didn't think I was worthy and still, like you, times come up, right? And it's a practice. It's not like all of a sudden you know when it's done. It's a practice. And
Yeah,
when I invite people like yourself on and have these conversations, it helps people move through whatever they're going through to get to the next step. And so I really appreciate your time and your energy today. And is there anything else you want to
good.
share with anybody before we get going?
No, I think I would just say you're worthy of love, you are enough, and the world needs you.
Awesome. All right, guys. Um,
Thank
Sherry.
you for having me.